Welcome to the Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast, where we talk all things Panther City Lacrosse Club. Now here are your hosts, Nicholas and Andy.
Coming off a thrilling overtime win against Philadelphia, Panther City traveled to Halifax for the first time in franchise history to take on the Thunderbirds. Welcome everyone to the Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast. I'm Nicholas, joined by Andy.
Hello.
Andy, after that big win last week against the Wings, Panther City was sitting nice at 500, but they were hoping to keep the momentum going into a place where, the franchise has never been before. This is the first time they've ever been to Halifax.
Yep, or as the TV crew was calling it, California. And like you said, first time playing them in the franchise's history at either place. And what with how the standings were looking like before the game, it was a game where, depending on who won, well, if Panther City had won, they would have basically done a flip-flop within the standings. So definitely a game that was important for us.
Well, and not only for that, but for Halifax's too, because they wanted to win for standing purposes. I mean, they're obviously in playoff contention as well, but they wanted to, pretty much sit a little bit better than what they were. But a couple of pre-game notes going into this. Not a surprise, but still kind of like, okay, what's going on at this point? No Crawford again. Callum was scratched out before game time again.
Yeah, didn't really love to see it. I mean, I do suspect that they are, like you said, possibly trying to keep him fresh for the stretch run. But also, I know one of the reasons that he wanted to come play for Panther City in the first place was that it wouldn't be as much of a strain on him travel-wise with him being able to travel to home games. So, who knows, maybe at this point in his career, he's played a lot of seasons in the league. Maybe he's more, I wouldn't say a part-time player per se, but if he has other commitments that might kind of make traveling a bit harder, he might just kind of take those as priority at this point. Again, that's complete conjecture. We could be completely off base, but sad to see him not out there with the rest of the offense, because you can definitely tell they miss him.
Yeah, and I mean, hopefully Crawford gets better, coming up on these last few games. I was thinking about, this was a weird 5:30 start time. It was early for us. I know it was 7:30. Where they were, but still, just kind of an early, weird start time to start a game on a Friday.
Yeah, East Coast and everything, so we haven't really played a ton of those this year. I mean, there was Philly, but I don't remember the Philly game starting quite at that point.
Well, it was a Sunday afternoon game, so they start a little bit different. But the other note, of course, you touched on it last week, but Matt Hossett and Dylan Hutchinson taking on fellow brothers Graham Hossick and Drew Hutchinson over there in Halifax.
Yeah, I don't quite remember whether Drew is also a defenseman, but both Hossicks are. So, Graham Hossick's one of the most accomplished defensemen in the league. I think he's a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year winner. So baby brother Matt's, kind of trying to get to his level, and so far he's doing a great job of it, playing with Panther City.
Well, yeah, and Graham was a key factor in this game too. He got involved in a lot of stuff, but coming into this game, I think we both kind of acknowledged that it was a game Panther City needed to win, but also, like, where do we stand, with these upper echelon teams still? Because we still, I feel like we don't know for sure. And unfortunately, with Panther City getting a penalty, led to Halifax going up 1-0 on a power play goal. Obviously not the way you want to start in enemy territory.
Yeah, and honestly, I think maybe the kind of team that Halifax is, like, that turned on the light bulb or lit their fire pretty early on, and it showed, I would say, for, if not throughout the entire rest of the game, certainly for the rest of the first half.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they definitely didn't need a whole lot to get started. I mean, this was for St. Patrick's Day weekend. They had a lot going on there. But, I will say this, though. Early on,
Certainly
it did seem like our offense
start,
was at least trying to fill the hole of Crawford, but trying to push it as much as they could. Great offer. I mean, honestly, this was a great play to watch when it was happening. But Gauthier, I believe it was, going around, kind of gets pushed down by a couple defenders. He doesn't know who's behind him, or he doesn't know what's going on behind him. He just knows, there's Panther City players back there somewhere, And so with 3 seconds left on the shot clock, he just shoots it back, and Donville just picks it up, and with 1 second left on the shot clock, gets a great shot off, scores. I mean, it ties us up 1-1, but it was just great effort by the offense at that point.
Yeah, great job of basically doing what he does best. Like, even if he gets knocked around, he's not going to give up on the play. And to have the wherewithal to pass it right where Donnie was going to be waiting for him really worked out and, tied things up early.
Yeah, but, Halifax, I mean, they try to answer back quick. Unfortunately, there was a goal that was reversed. Good challenge by Coach TK. Stayed 1-1, but about a minute later after that, they did score, and that was kind of like the starting point, I feel like, for Halifax. I mean, they went up 2-1 at that point. It just felt like we can't let them get started early.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Once they get the ball rolling with guys like Ryan Benesh, who even had a cup of coffee with Panther City way back in their first season. Now he's tearing things up for the Thunderbirds. He did a really good job out there. Austin Shanks was scoring a lot early too. So just multiple. I mean, if you look at the breakdown, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different Thunderbirds were able to score in that first quarter, and so it just makes a team that much more dangerous when they've got that versatility and that many guys to account for. It's one thing to see it on the scouting report, but then to have it actually happen to you. And that early on in the game, it can't help but be a bit disheartening.
Well, yeah, and like you said, it started to run for Halifax. I mean, there's penalties on both sides, which led to 4-4, but Halifax scored 3-1. The defense was just having a hard time. Mm-hmm. It was almost like they had a hard time just keeping them in check. I mean, Halifax was just running their offense at will at that point. But yeah, another power play. Or no, actually, we got a power play at one point, but Halifax got a turnover. Great effort by them. I hate to say, again, if this was a Halifax podcast, I'd be like, play of the game, easy contender. I mean, they get a great transition goal. The guy, unfortunately, ran into Daymood after he,
Daymood wasn't too happy about that. But...
Yeah, I know he wasn't happy about that, but 4-1. I mean, and then just another 2 towards the end of the first quarter. I mean, the first quarter ended with a 5? Yeah.
Yeah,
5-0 run. I mean, you can't let teams go on that kind of run, because, I mean, that's how they take advantage.
Mm-hmm. And not to blame this on Sheridan or anything. We know that he plays very physical and is energetic. I do think that him running into Warren Hill, on the very first or second possession, really did kind of prematurely light the fire for Halifax and be like, okay, we're gonna really punch these guys in the mouth early. And but after the first, I mean, that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, and so I'll be honest, it was kind of disheartening. After the first quarter, I was like, well, all right, well, this was a fun quarter to watch, I guess. But second quarter started, more from Halifax. They went up 7-1. Again, defense just struggling. Offense, I mean, with the offense, it just seemed like, I said last week, Crawford is a game manager. He's somebody who can manage the field with ease. He knows where to set up people. He knows how to set up plays. And without him out there, it just feels like they're kind of going through the motions, but I don't know.
I think one thing that he does, he's a very good back-to-the-net player, almost like a basketball post player. And doing that with his creativity and quick moves and whatnot, he's able to often draw double teams. You didn't really see any of that, certainly in the first half of the game against Halifax. I felt like you kind of see how elite not just Haas's brother is, but the rest of the defenses, in terms of they were able to keep it seemed like every Panther City player on offense just almost like this, like there was this force field around their net that was quite 10 to 15 feet away from it. So it's like they weren't really getting much in the way of shots. And when they were from far away and not at the best angles. So they communicated on switches well too. Whenever Panther City would kind of try to run some penetrations and slash towards the net. But yeah, it was, I think playing more aggressively would have helped out, but I don't know their defense really did seem locked in.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And like you pointed out, the fact that we couldn't even get close to the net to get some shots off. I mean, there were a few times we did, but again, they were like just way outside or not even close, or that what I noticed a lot of it was a lot of contested shots where Halifax was getting their sticks in there, and so we couldn't get a clean shot off to begin with. And so, yeah, it just seemed like our offense was having a hard time. They get another goal, up 8-1. At that point, I'm just like, what is happening with this team? I mean, again, you never want to see this happen to your team. You know, you never want to see your team getting blown out like this. But the best you can hope for is just like, hey, let's settle down. Let's kind of recompose ourselves. 8-1. I mean, they did score again with a little over a minute left. So 9-1 didn't feel like too far away, but still, it felt like a lot to get back into. It's kind of like that Georgia the game earlier this year. Like it just, even though it wasn't insurmountable, it just felt like it was.
Yeah, and especially given Halifax's recent history in terms of success. Like generally, they're always making the playoffs nowadays, and of course, they were above us in the standings a little bit in this game, and so I wouldn't say they're too dissimilar from us in terms of success, but they did probably have, I don't know if it was just more hunger or better execution, or they were that much more motivated. But yeah, something about it just seemed off. And obviously, Showtime being out, that's a great veteran leader for what he brings on the field and also off of it in terms of keeping guys motivated and not letting their heads sink down too much. So yeah, it was rough.
Oh yeah, no, I mean rough is the right word I would use there, but we did finally get another goal. Under a minute left, Knox finally kind of stops the bleeding, 9-2, but it was short-lived. I mean, it seemed like we finally got something on our side for 2 seconds right before halftime. Halifax answered back. They're up 10-2 right before halftime. On top of that, I mean, huge hit to Panther City right before halftime. Osik seems to get hurt, and honestly, at that point, I wasn't even sure if he was going to come back.
Yeah, he took a big hit basically on that last goal, because he was right next to Damien, right next to the net when it happened. So that's something you hate to see. I mean, to anyone, but especially to the spirit of the team and the captain and Haas.
Yeah, and so going into halftime, I mean, we're down 10-2. All I could think of was just like, what was that? I mean, there was tons of turnovers, offense couldn't get anything going, bad passes. I don't know. It didn't feel. 8 points isn't horrible in lacrosse, especially with box lacrosse, how fast you can score. But it felt like the game was already out of hand at that point. And, I mean, we had a lot of stuff against us. I mean, there's definitely some things.
Yeah, I mean, 8-point deficit on the road. We've talked about Damien's kind of inconsistencies in the past, and he's a guy that, eventually gets into a groove, usually by the time the second quarter is rolling around, or even midway through the first. So to see him have those early season struggles, I'm glad that TK kept him in for the majority, if not all of the first half, just to kind of try to play through things. But man, I mean, if you look at some of the first half stats, like Halifax put up 38 shots on goal. We were only able to get 15. Now Warren Hill, he's a good goalie, but he's not what you would consider elite. And so you really got to pressure those guys and make them work to make their saves. Panther City, the fact that we were only able to get 15 shots, basically less than half of the nearly 40 shots that poor Damien is getting peppered with in the first half. Like, they're not going to keep many games close by doing that. And then we haven't mentioned yet, but Jake Withers on the in the dot for Halifax. He's actually the league leader in face-off wins this year, as well as Lucy's. And I think he beat Burton 12-1 in the dot. So, you know, Burton's no slouch in the dot. So for him to get dominated that way by Withers just kind of speaks to how good that team is. And then power play opportunities, we had 2 of them, but couldn't capitalize on either of them. From what I remember, that was Halifax's first goal. And then, the Lucy discrepancy, they had upwards of 30 more loose balls than us in the first half alone.
Malcolm
so
in the middle,
it's
but
just,
it's actually Woods.
It was not a fun half.
Well, it honestly, I was thinking to myself, like, they came out in this game flat-footed. And I don't know if that was because they came off the win last week and was just like riding that high and thinking, okay, well, if we can just keep that energy going into Halifax, like, things will just work out for us. But, like, man, the team we saw in Philadelphia was not the team I saw in the first half of this game.
Mm-hmm. Certainly not the way Halifax wanted to start.
It's weird to see just how much can change in a week. But I say that,
looks for his options.
You know, the first half, a good one. I mean, we talked about Coach TK being able to make adjustments, kind of get the team settled down, figure out some things that work for them, and figure out what to do. And right off the bat, I mean, the first thing, unfortunately, you know, Damude survived the first 2 quarters. That was it for him. I think TK was like, you know what, let's change it up a little bit. And I'm glad he waited at least a little bit longer this time. I mean, usually he pulls them, you know, right in the first quarter. But this time, he was able to give him a little bit of time, which may have maybe hurt us in the long run. But he put Tamacloud in at goal. And something must have happened, because that offense, all of a sudden, they were getting some good passes to each other. They were getting a lot of ball movement. Not a few minutes in, we got a third goal. I mean, we're 10-3, and we're like, okay, hey, let's start something now.
Yeah, and it was nice to see that goal, especially because it was Tony Malcolm in transition, just going through, like, okay, if your regular offense isn't working, then make a nice stop on defense, and then see what guys can do in transition. And that's exactly what Tony did on the fast break. He had Will coming down the side too, but was able to, when he saw that the defender had kind of committed to Will, he was like, all right, I'll go one-on-one with Hill. And thankfully he won that individual battle. So really nice to see him. It was good to get the second half off to that kind of start. And even going into the half, I think before it even started, I kind of had to laugh. The camera had a shot of TK on the bench, you know, looking all serious. And Josh Medeiros actually went up to him and kind of like waved his smelling salts.
I saw that.
Whatever TK always, you know, uses it to kind of help, I guess, loosen him up or fire him up. And so, not that necessarily had any effect on Coach TK's coaching or the game plan, but it was kind of nice to just a little window into, like, how guys kind of try to stay loose and be like, hey, you know, don't think of this as pressure. Like, hey, it's 8-2 now. It's like a whole other game. Let's see what we can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And on top of that, the defense came out playing a little bit more aggressive too. It seems like they were, you know, like doubling up people sometimes, trying to get turnovers. They were a lot more active with their sticks, trying to knock the ball out. It just seemed like kind of a different defense coming out after halftime, which actually led to one of them was a turnover, led down. Donville got a goal, 10-4, and then Knox again not too long after that. So before we knew it, I mean, it was 10-5. 5 goals isn't that much. I mean, we were at least looking better at that point.
Yeah, definitely. And then Cam looked solid in net. Knox. One thing I've noticed about Knox, and Sheridan for that matter, or a lot of these younger guys, they don't it almost doesn't matter what the score is to them. They're going to play the same way regardless. So it's just something you really like to see, especially from a guy, who's a high draft pick and as highly touted as Knox was. So it was great to see him get on the board and Donnie do what he does. If for nothing else than to cut into that early goal.
Well, and on top of that, you mentioned about McLeod. Yeah, he did get some good block shots in that third quarter. So it's good to see him kind of getting into a groove early on. And then as the quarter went on, I mean, we were able to kind of, stuff up Halifax. They didn't get any scores. We get 2 more right before the end of the third, 10-7. Again, it just seemed like we played probably our best quarter right there. The third quarter was obviously our best quarter we had played to that point.
Mm-hmm. And I'd say I don't know if this makes it even more so or it's best quarter with an asterisk. There was a pretty big fight between Brent Mitchell and Thompson on the other side. And, it led to Mitchell getting ejected, which, in all honesty, was probably completely warranted because he ripped the other guy's helmet off. And the other guy was like, okay, I guess we're doing this. So, but I say that because that meant I think we were man down for at least 2 minutes, and we didn't allow any power play goals or any goals at all from Halifax during that third quarter. So, yeah, you didn't really like to see the suspension. You didn't like to see poor Evan Messenger having to serve more penalty minutes for his teammates.
Right.
But, yeah, it was really impressive that despite being man down for a good chunk, they were able to kind of shut the offense down for that quarter. Like, credit to Cam McLeod, credit to the defense. I think by that time, Haas had started playing him and was back in the game, so glad that he wasn't hurt. So, yeah, definitely gave us some hope going into the fourth.
Right. I thought to myself, man, hey, if we can keep playing this way, I mean, we could easily come back and at least tie it up or have a shot laid on. But the good play and the third quarter was short-lived because once that fourth quarter started, it took Halifax, 30 seconds? Not even that. And they scored. And that put them up on a 2 or 3 minute run of just goal. 3 goals in a row. And it was 13-7 before even a third of the quarter went through.
Yeah, they definitely helped to kill whatever momentum we had at that point with that little streak of theirs. And, lacrosse is a game of runs. Once you get going, then, well, in Halifax's case, once one guy gets going, it makes things easier for another guy to get going. I mean, I think their second goal in that little run, Jake Withers basically won the face-off, and then he just took it in himself for a one-man face-off win, fast break opportunity. So it's just, I mean, hats off to them. They built a big lead when we were able to put a dent in it and make it look like we were clawing back. They pretty much put an end to that early in the fourth.
Yeah, and at that point after that, I mean, Caputo did get an answer back, so 13-8. But by that time, Halifax started slowing down the game. They kind of really started bleeding the clock a lot of times. They would hold on to the ball. If they made a shot, there was a few times they got some good rebounds and they were able to bleed. That's 30 seconds at a time. And so the next thing you know, you're bleeding minutes off the clock, just not really doing a whole lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really hurt us and limited our opportunities, which is a shame, considering that the offense really did seem to find its groove in that third quarter.
Well, and so, I mean, as time was winding down, Caputo, I mean, good showing from him in the fourth quarter. He got 2 goals, but it was with 2 minutes left, 13-9, and that's the final, 13-9, which it's only 4 points, but man, this game, the score sounds closer than the game actually was. I mean, I really just, man, I don't know. I'm glad we fought back, but man, it never felt that close,
Yeah. Thanks, Uncle Phil, for making the score respectable. But beyond that, it almost felt like an 8-point deficit for most of the time you're watching. I mean, I'm glad we got that one out of the way. I'm hoping that's the only game we have like that left this season.
Well, yeah, and I mean, we'll talk deep about like our final thoughts on the game towards the end here, but there was a lot of inconsistencies, a lot of just, nothing except for one quarter. I mean, 1/4 of the game to be good. I mean, that's great. That's good for morale, but that's not going to win you many games. But well, of course, this game just wasn't our game, and it didn't really help in our favor at all. But that's not to say there weren't a lot of stats and a lot of things to talk about, which of course leads us to Mr. Andrew's stats of the game. Mr. Andrew, what do you have broken down for this game against Halifax?
Well, believe it or not, the stats reflect. Well, they mostly reflect that it wasn't Panther City's finest hour.
Not our night.
Yeah, so, we mentioned that Nick Damey was pulled out for the first half. Up to that point, he went 28 out of 38 for sub-75 save percentage, right around 73.6. Which, that's... He had a lot of good saves, but there were just so many shots on goal by Halifax, and just the defense seeming off kilter that have made his job a lot harder. And so, he did his best, but he just wasn't cutting it, unfortunately. Cam McLeod, on the other hand, he had a great third quarter, but a great second half overall. He dealt with 15 less shots on goal than Damey, which certainly helped. But he was able to save 20 out of 23 for a stellar 87% saving percentage. Well, I know he only played the second half, and it was in relief, and maybe Halifax had taken their foot off the gas pedal a little bit, but that is nothing to sniff at. So he did really good in relief minutes. Meanwhile, Warren Hill on the other side, he saved 43 shots on goal for 79%. Now, with as many shots on goal as Halifax got on us, Hill had a pretty good save percentage, but in my head, I'm still thinking this guy only had to really save 15 shots in the first half, which we only made 2. So, he had a solid game, but I think our offense and really Halifax's defense too was really doing him a lot of favors. So, great game of McLeod. Hopefully Damey comes out firing in terms of goalies next week. So and like I said, there were save percentages and the shots that the goalies were faced with. It was indicative of the shot on goal discrepancy across both teams. Like Halifax had 23 more shots than us at halftime. After halftime, Panther City actually had a little more, but it wasn't nearly the 23 goal discrepancy that we had at the half. We were losing Lucy's after the first half. That didn't change going into the second. Halifax was able to grab 78 of them. We only grabbed, I didn't say only. So relative to that, we only grabbed 52. In face-offs, Jake Withers continued to dominate. He went 20 out of 26. Tyler was only able to beat him on 6 of those. And then, we already mentioned the shots on goal. We lost that 43-61. We touched on Brent Mitchell's penalty earlier, but I was kind of curious, and I'll have to do some research on this after this episode, that he was tagged with 17 penalty minutes. And this is all from the fight he instigated with Nonken Thompson. He had the 2-minute minor, a 5-minute major for the actual fight, and then he was given 10 minutes for game misconduct. Now, I know... From what I remember, he got ejected from the game, and he didn't show up again. So I'm wondering whether that 10 minutes is just how it got logged on the NLL statistics on their website, or whether that 10 minutes is actually served in some capacity. Because I know Messenger had to serve at least the instigation and the fighting penalties, but I don't know how the ejection kind of factored into that. So that's something I might do a little independent research on my end to see if I can figure out if that's just how they log it in the the rules or what. So kind of interesting on that end. You know, there wasn't a lot of offensive bright spots for us. But that being said, Donnie, he had 5 points. He had a hat trick with 3 goals and 2 assists. Well, Malcolm had 4 points. Unfortunately, they were all assists. So it's good that he got the ball moving, but you know, that's not really what we're accustomed to seeing from Wilk, given how great a goal scorer he is. And I think this actually broke his streak that he had of scoring a goal in all games this season. So that was unfortunate to see that come to an end. Knox had 3 points overall with his 2 goals and an assist. Caputo made things respectable in the fourth with his 2 fourth quarter goals. One really interesting thing, the Panther City power plays really helped us in previous games, but kind of similar to the Rochester. I think it was Rochester, right? Kind of similar to that game. Did Crawford sit out that one? I don't quite remember. But
he was there. But
he was there. Okay.
They nullified him pretty good that game.
Gotcha. Okay, so I might be thinking of the Philly game, which we ended up winning. It is kind of crazy that there were, I think, 10 man-up plays in this game, and between Halifax and Panther City, there's only a single power play goal, and that was Halifax. They went 1 of 5 on their power plays. Meanwhile, Panther City went 0 of 5. And you don't love to see that. I can't help but think that Callum Crawford not playing has to play a huge part of that.
Well, and power plays has been kind of the bright spot for us this year. It seems like, you know, we're at least, 50% on the year maybe, or close to it, or even more. But to have a game where we score 0 times on any power plays, like that's rough. And going back to McLeod and Daymud, maybe this is meant for like into the game kind of discussion, but do you feel that Daymud, even though he's had a few inconsistent games this year, is he's still your starter coming up the rest of these few games, or do you try to ride the hot hand with McLeod and start him and see what happens?
I would still stick with Daymud, I think, you know, McLeod played great in release minutes. Just based on my eye test, Daymud is still overall the better goalie. He just has these bouts of inconsistency, and then, you know, other factors that might play into it, like just who's the opponent. How is our offense doing? Is our defense full strength and whatnot? I would still stick with him, especially during this stretch run, because, you know, he's had some I guess we could call them duds, but he's had some great moments as well. Yeah. So for now, I would stick with him, and if need. I guess that's the luxury of having a goalie like Cam McLeod. Like, well, you know, if Daymud's not going to be doing that great, then you have another guy waiting in the wings who's able to make a lot of good saves as well.
Right. Just a discussion point. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen, but I think looking at, you know, there's just that similarities. Like, I think Daymud's inconsistency is what keeps him from becoming that, you know, upper category of the goalies, you know, your Del Biancos, your Riglieris and stuff like that. They're consistent. Like they really never have a game where they, you know, they have games where they struggle, but you don't see it happen as much. And I think that's kind of what's keeping him, like, even though his save percentage is way up there year-wise, it's just like, that's what's keeping him from that upper level. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I definitely wouldn't consider him on like a Nick Rose or Matt Vince or that level just yet. Granted, he's very, you know, young in his career and whatnot. So, yeah, I'm expecting him to do better next game for sure, just because he's that kind of player. So, yeah, we'll see how things.
He's good at having bounce back games. So, I agree with that. Well, that is, of course, Mr. Andrews' stats of the game. Brings us into our cool cap plays of the game. I mean, we only had we only had 9 points, and not a lot of scores to or a lot of plays to choose from. But for me, I think there was one play that does stand out for me, especially and it was that first goal in the first quarter. Huge effort, by Gauthier. Huge effort by Donville. That's the offense I want to see. I want to see an offense that just doesn't give up and just tries stuff to see if it works. And it worked out in their favor. Got a great shot. Just all around. I mean, that first goal by Donville. I mean, I think that was, of course, my play of the game. What about for you?
I'll have to go with the one that started off the second half. Tony Malcolm with that unassisted transition goal, just going coast to coast with it and catching Moore and Hill off guard. I feel like that, as good as the Donville and the Knox goal were in the first half, I felt that Tony goal, something about transition goals really kind of put the pressure onto a goalie, whether it's because it's a one-on-one situation where it's just almost like mano a mano,
right,
or whatnot, or the added pressure of not wanting to be on a highlight reel. So I got to go with Tony. That to me, that was the best play of the game, or at least my favorite. I'll put it that way.
Right.
Me, I love my transition.
Oh yeah. No, for sure. Well, that leads us into our big cat players of the game. Again, it's hard to pick, like, hey, what's a bright spot in a loss like this? And again, it's one of those things where I had a hard time thinking, like, well, so and so did good during this stretch, and Caputo had some really, he had some good goals at the end, which didn't mean a whole lot in the big picture. But I will say, for me, probably the only player that I can think of for sure just had a complete game in the minutes that he played was Cam McLeod. I think this is probably his best backup game he's ever played. He really came in that second half, and like you said, he gave up three goals, but considering the offense scored 10 in the first half, and maybe they let their foot, like you mentioned, maybe they let their foot off the gas a little bit, but still, it's not like they weren't trying. It's not like they weren't, making shots at that point. Again, I think it was the best showing I've seen from him, in a while. And so I'll say he's my big cat player this game. What about for yourself?
Ditto. I went with Cam McLeod as well for that stellar 87% save percentage, 20 out of 23. He basically helped give us a chance to come back because of his play in that. Again, with the defensive Southern and with the offenses, helped just applying pressure and kind of keeping the ball out of Halifax's six. But it's not a luxurious life being a backup goalie, especially to one as skilled as Nick Danuke. But on a night where Danuke struggled in that first half, McLeod filled in very admirably. So he's my big cat player of the game too.
Nice. Panther City, and it's not much of a set piece whatsoever.
Coming from this game,
on an island, Knox recognizes
definitely want to touch on some final thoughts. I mean, for me, for us as fans, I think it was hard to watch at times, just because we're not used to seeing that kind of game from our team. We've seen it happen a few times this year, but they were able to get back into it. This time they did have a chance to get back into it, but just couldn't keep things going. I'm glad they came back in the third, made it look like a competitive game, but it was a game we desperately needed. Right now, because of this loss, we're in the 8th spot. We're hanging on to that last playoff spot, and from here on out, as we've touched on before, this is not an easy road ahead of us. We have very hard games to finish the season, and if we have any shot on making the playoffs, A, we have to be able to win a few of those, but B, we're at the mercy of other teams around us. We are just literally waiting to see, hey, who else can fall off around us so we can get that playoff spot. But
Panther City down the other way. Malcolm's open, but there's the shot. They score.
I think this game. I think we talked about it last week. I think we both expected a good back and forth game. I think we both give Halifax 13 or something. I knew there was a 13 in there somewhere, but
Malcolm
I think I said,
but no, it's actually Woods.
I might have said 12-10.
In the middle,
I definitely gave them double digits.
I think I said 13-11. Yeah, so
decision by Woods. He splits.
We knew something was going to happen, but we didn't expect this. Yeah, I mean, this was the game. I think Panther City is going to look back on and be like, man, we should have done better.
Yeah, they you know, I don't think it's as bad as, say, the Las Vegas overtime loss at home. But given that we're getting close to the end of the season and the importance of all these games, all these teams that are bunched together, Halifax being one of them, Buffalo this coming week being another one. Like, I feel like each time we're facing a team that's kind of in that same area of the standings and stuff, we tend to have some trouble. And yeah, the game against Halifax was no different. So it was disappointing. I am glad that third quarter was, I mean, aside from the Mitchell penalty, I felt it was pretty flawless. And yeah, again, there are a lot of things I could factor into that, but that would be my silver lining if you want to focus on something that we did well. And we also stopped Halifax's power play pretty well throughout, which was good too.
Little jab step comes up and watch. He's going to flick his
overall,
wrists at the end.
This is a game that is going to hurt him. Things don't really get any easier back home next week, with Buffalo coming to Texas. This one hurt, but thankfully, you got to have a short memory and move on to the next one.
Well, and I was thinking about this a lot over the weekend. I think the reason why these games, like this game, and like you mentioned, the overtime loss against Vegas, and even the game against Georgia where we were down early and we had to come back, or the loss against Rochester, is coming into this season, we felt like Panther City was ready to take the next step. I try not to, I mean, a little view into my lifestyle is I try not to get excited and be like, get my hopes up. But I really did get my hopes up because I thought, man, they did such a good job last year putting things together at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. Things just kind of clicked. And now we have a lot of those pieces coming back. And like everything was set up for us to take the next step. And it just seems like we haven't. And in some areas, it seems like we've taken a step back at points. And so I think that's why games like this are hard, because I feel like we should have maybe not necessarily won, but we should have been in the thick of it. We should have been more competitive. We should have been closer. Same thing with Rochester. That was a game we should have had, and we just let it slip through. I don't know. It's as a fan, it obviously is disappointing, but like you said, there are some silver linings, and I hope that's something they can take away and hopefully come in this week and use those silver linings and those positives to kind of grow on.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it sucks to lose, but you got to find things that you can take from it and grow from. And I mean, at least they're at home next week, and fingers crossed. Hopefully that means Callum's playing.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, we obviously leave this game behind us. Look ahead to this week's game against Buffalo. I mean, what to say about this game? It's the defending champs. I mean,
indeed,
their record might not be what we expected it to be this year, and they might have struggled, but you got to respect them. They're just as tough of a team as they are this year as they were last year. And coming into Texas for the first time, it makes you wonder, like, are we ready for it?
Well, you know, maybe not even before the results of last week's game against Halifax, I was thinking, well, at least we're getting to play Buffalo for the first time ever at home. I'll take the home court advantage at least. Yeah, I mean, God, Dane Smith, he won MVP a couple of years ago. Him and Josh Byrne are ranked number 2 and 3 in points scored in the league so far. So it's just, I trust that Damien's going to have a rebound game. Like, I trust that he's going to do better against Buffalo than Halifax. But, man, they're going to have their work cut out.
I was about to say, he's going to have his work cut out for him.
Yeah, and, we brought up, Buffalo's record kind of being underwhelming to a lot of people. If I'm not mistaken, I think Matt Vince sat out for a little bit, so they didn't have their starting goalie. I think leads so many record books in terms of minutes played and saves and that kind of thing. So they're going to be probably as close to full strength as one could expect against us.
Well, I think they're the kind of team this time of year. They're gearing up. They know where they're at and they know what they need to do to finish off the season and get ready for the playoffs. And so yeah, I think they're getting their pieces together for sure.
Yeah, I mean, speaking to that point, Toronto's the number 1 team in the league right now. Buffalo just beat them last week.
Mm-hmm.
Toronto's still number 1, which kind of speaks volumes about how much of a gap how much they've separated themselves from the pack. But I mean, a Panther City team at 6-7 and Buffalo team at 7-6. There's probably more separating them than one would suspect, just looking at the raw numbers.
Well, and coming into this game. So we've done the Show Me Something segment a few times. I did put down, if I'm going to ask anything, it's show me something the entire team. Like, you're at home, you've got the defending champs. Like, show me what you can do against the defending champs. Like you said, their records are close. This is our chance to not shock the league or anything, but we can shock some people. We can get back on track. We can, if Callum plays, we can get the team back to where we need it to be for this last fourth. And so, I mean, my expectations for this game is, I hope Callum Crawford is back in the lineup. Simple. At B, like you said, bounce back game from Damoud. And C, we just need those key players to show up. I mean, you mentioned about Will Malcolm not having a goal for the first time all season. Well, can't let that happen again. Like, Coach TK said a few weeks ago, hey, you want to be that man? Be that man. And we thought Will Malcolm was that man. He was that man for a few weeks, but he wasn't this week. He wasn't, this game against Halifax. So can he be that guy? Can him and Crawford and Gauthier, Caputo, Tony Malcolm, I mean, Eddie Hosick, everybody, can that entire team show up against the defending champs? Wow. Win or loss? Oof. Actually, go ahead and talk about your expectations real quick, because I got to stew on this for a second.
You know me, I'm a broken record. I'm ever the optimist. I would say if I were to, I'll be a little more pointed with my show me something. I do think I'd like to see the offense step up, regardless of whether Crawford plays or not. Because I know, we come here. Obviously, you want a team to be full strength. You want a guy of Showtime's caliber to playing with them. But the reality is we don't know what he's dealing with. So we don't necessarily want to pin wins or losses on whether he plays. So I would love to see Will Malcolm get on the scoreboard again this game. Love to see Phil Caputo and Sheridan and Knox do what they do. Love to see Donville go crazy in terms of setting guys up and find his own shots. Would love to see more transition goals. I know Medi and Goodwin, even though they didn't score last game, they had some great attempts that just didn't go in. I want them to keep that same intensity, that same aggression. I'd love to see...
Tonight,
Tyler Burton pull Jake Withers and win the face-off and then take the button himself. Or at least try to get it.
He almost did in that overtime game a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we know he's capable of playing the back of the net when he gets the rare opportunity to. So I just love to see everyone kind of be more aggressive on that. And, Matt Vince, he's one of the great goalies in this league, but hey, he's a great opportunity for the rest of the team to kind of test themselves and show what they're made of. The defense, we know they're going to have their work cut out with them against the Great Dane and Josh Byrne and company. So yeah, it's going to be tough, but I think I'm of the mindset you have to have a mentality that you're going to go into every game and win in order to have a legitimate shot at doing it. You got to have that confidence in yourself. So I think in our first ever game against Buffalo, the defending champions, I think we are going to win.
This game is a game of runs, and now we might have
a
tilt.
Any guess on the score?
Has his helmet ripped off, and here we go.
Do you even get it? Do you even dare?
Thompson going at it here in Halifax.
14-13.
Landing a couple rights. Another right.
All right,
Mitchell
well,
trying to get loose
I'm going to let you be optimist. I'm unfortunately going to be the pessimist. I'm looking at their schedule right now. So Buffalo, then San Diego,
on Duke Street.
And then you have Philadelphia and Albany, and then Calgary at the end of the year.
Mitchell tries to come back.
What is the record right now? 6-7, right?
Yeah, 6-7. Do you think they're going to finish above 500? I guess would be a big question.
Is an 8-10 record good enough to get you in the playoffs?
Here in California.
Because
you're gonna.
I think that's what we're on the. I feel like that's what we're on the verge of, unless we can turn this around. This ship right now is taking on water, and
City down the other way. Malcolm's open, but there's the shot.
I can see losses against Buffalo. I can see a loss against San Diego, and I can see a loss against Albany or Calgary. I can see a win against Philadelphia, but I can also see a win against Albany or Calgary. And so that's what I'm saying.
In the middle, but no, it's actually Woods.
Can we do enough to hold on to this, at least this last spot? Or can we turn our ship around and can we win these last 5 games? So I am optimistic as a fan that this Friday the game will be closer and it will be hard fought and it will be a better game than we've seen either against Halifax or Rochester or that game in Georgia or whatever. I still think we might lose, though. And the only reason being is because Buffalo, I'm telling you, man, they are hitting that time of the year where they're, last year of this time, I think they had a few losses in a row. And the last 5 games, I think they won all 5 of them in a row. And they went to the playoffs and they just started steamrolling people. And I'm afraid that's where they're at right now. So I'm going to say it's a loss. I'm going to say it is a close game, though. I'm going to say 12-11. But that's what I'm saying. It's just, even with a tough loss like this against the defending champs, I think that's enough to motivate a team that they could win their last 4. And if they won this week and win their last 4, great. But man, I guess the realist is coming out in me a little bit. Like I don't want to be pessimistic because I think Panther City has the people and has the ability and has the tools and has the coaches to get this team to the playoffs. Can they do it? We'll have to see it and find out. Sorry, I know that went a little bit long, but
no worries. I mean, yeah, not to look ahead too much, but Albany and San Diego, they're just like right under Toronto in terms of being the class of the NLL right now. So be that as it may, the game against Calgary, who's taken a step down since Kurt Malosky went to Vancouver to coach.
Mm-hmm.
The game against Philadelphia, who we seem to have their number even when the games are really close as of late. and this Friday's game are going to be really, really telling in terms of how they can go. I'm as experienced as Buffalo is, I still have confidence in them. So,
well, that's what I'm saying. They have the ability to. They have the team. They have the players. They really could. But as we mentioned, even with Damoud earlier, this team just unfortunately has been inconsistent this year. We have really good games, and then we have a really bad one, and then we have another really bad one, and then we have another good game. And so it's like, can we figure that out at the end of the year? Can we go on a run to get us where we need to go? But these last 4 and 5 weeks, man, I don't know. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard games, to say the least. Well, I didn't put it in the rundown. One thing I did want to touch on. So coming up, obviously we only have 3 more home games left. This Friday against Buffalo, and then we have Sunday the 7th, April 7th against Philadelphia, which will be a good game. And then the last home game this year is Sunday, April 14th against Albany, which is going to be a tough game. But something that, I think will be a good thing from our end is we're going to have our first ever tailgate party. So obviously we're trying to get the word out about that. My mindset with this tailgate party, which, be sure to check us on social media. I'll put links on there. I'll probably have some flyers to hand out to people as they're coming into the stadium, either this game or the next one. My goal for the last home game is to just have people show up, either whether we're in playoff contention or, we have our spot solidified, or by that point we're completely out of it. Either way, I want there to be a support for this team to show there are fans and there are people who enjoy going to the games, and even people who I'm inviting that, maybe have never watched lacrosse and they can get interested in it. But it's just, I want the last game to be one that people remember. And so for the 14th, April 14th, we're going to have a tailgate from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. We're going to have some games, some giveaways. We'll do a group march into the stadium at 3:15. Get to see the team warming up and everything before game time. I just want it to be a good time. I want it to be something that everybody remembers having a good time and a good experience with. But I don't know. I've never done tailgating before. So from what I understand, it's just to show up. There's a lot of food and a lot of games.
Yeah. I did one tailgate for a Cowboys game many years ago, and my buddies went all out. They had I think chicken poppers or whatever, chicken or shrimp, and people were grilling and partaking in some refreshments. Yeah, it's a good time. So yeah, hopefully we can get the word out and get as many people there as possible to help cheer them on against Albany.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of want to see. I just want a good group to be there to cheer on the team, win or loss at that point. But coming down the stretch, I mean, there's only a few games left, a few home games and a few away games, and that's it for this season. Hopefully this Friday we can have a good showing against Buffalo, and honestly, I hope some other games kind of fall in our favor as the season winds down. I definitely hope certain games fall in our favor just so we can have a better chance of getting into the playoffs. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But as always, thank you guys all for listening. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, X, or Twitter, and YouTube. Of course, I am once again Nicholas.
And I'm once again Andy.
And we'll see you all next time.
Sweet. Cheers, y'all.